Hello, friend. I have a story to tell you today. It's the story of my daughter's life. She died of lung cancer at the age of 39, and I have written a book which I think is helpful to us today in the very difficult circumstances in which we live. It brings hope and encouragement and a sense that all is well. I hope you enjoy it. Episode 21. There have been times when it's just been awful, lying awake in the hospital, listening to all the sounds and all the beeps. Yeah, and not being able to sleep and having all sorts of thoughts rushing through your head, Shirley tells me. Now she yawns and stretches and looks at her watch and groans. It's only 1:30 a.m., an infinitely long time to wait. Tomorrow they will prep her for the operation on Wednesday. She remembers explaining to Nick, the idea behind the high levels of chemo was to blast the tumour in my leg. So they've hit me as hard as they could with everything they had. The docs have to take out 2/3 of my femur. Then they replace it with a metal rod. Next they replace my knee. The last thing is to put a shaft down inside my tibia to keep my leg in place, sort of at the lower end. 1:30 a.m. moves to 1:35 a.m. Dark grey shades of fear slide in and settle into her stomach. What about the things I love doing? All of that needs 2 working legs. I did ask about skiing again and they said, yes, but I'm so scared. At last, Tuesday dawns. We each pack for what is probably going to be 2 weeks. Before we go, we supply Mark and Amanda from next door with a mountain of cat food. At the Nuffield, we trundle Shirley's things through the pink central rotunda. First thing is MRI and PET scans. Then Shirley has to have a central line removed. They don't want anything artificial in her body, as this could lead to infection. Usually she doesn't cry out. So when she does this time, I cringe. That can only mean it's very, very painful. Oh, Shirley, how much more must you suffer? Shirley is sad and pale as we make our way to the ward. As the day wears on, the grip of anxiety tightens relentlessly. Will I wake up in ICU? Will there be pipes everywhere? What about pain? When will they get me up? What about physio? How normal will the leg be afterwards? When will the chemo start again? And what about my lungs while there's no chemo? Shirley plugs in her earphones. She's looking for Oceans by Hillsong. You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. That's exactly it, where I am right now. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Take me deeper than my faith would ever wander. Oh, please, please, Lord, away from fear, far away, and into faith. Flowers flood in. A beautifully soft pink gerbera takes up prime position, in the front, in the middle. Cheery sunflowers blossom behind it. Roses from Tonya completes the display. I create my usual nest, pulling a hospital chair to one side. Distress throttles back the praying, but every now and then I do manage a bit. Nursing staff come and go. The activity around Shirley speeds up, and then they wheel her out. All I see in my mind, for hours afterwards, is her ashen face. She's speechless with fear. Nick brings everyone up to speed. The surgeon has said that they have to get close to some major nerves, which, if damaged, will result in a dropped foot. Please pray. She's third in line, so op will be round about midday. Thai, Katie texts me, would you like me to come and sit with you? I'm so touched, but I decide, no, I'll do best on my own, and I need to be alone with God. Through the endless afternoon, I sit quietly in my nest beside the large empty space that was Shirley's bed. I'm so glad Vicky, the Macmillan nurse, caring for her, pops in to talk a little. Oh, sigh, she says, "I was amazed to see how scared Shirley was. She's usually so chatty and friendly, but she couldn't get a word out." The minutes plod along. Somehow the minutes of this day are just that much more sluggish. My thoughts range far and wide. I long to understand what God is doing. I keep thinking that when Shirley is well again, she will have such a song to sing with her lovely voice, such a testimony to share. I picture her leading worship and telling her story again and again and glorifying God. On 4 September, Honey wakes Brian as usual and demands her breakfast. Today he has to deliver 2 reports to the annual General Synod of his church. But his thoughts stray. That he's stuck in South Africa while they operate on his only daughter in the Nuffield in Oxford bites deep. So in a daze he tucks into a hurried bowl of muesli. He wonders how he's ever going to cope and hopes there'll be few questions from the floor. Shock and trauma walk with him through that day. My heart is really sore for him. "Well, my sweetie pie," I write, "I've always been there to support you through Synod Week. I'm so sorry that it has to be so different this year, and that the day for which you carry the most responsibility has to be the day of Shirley's op. Please keep your phone on. God give us each the courage to focus and to do what we each have to do." At last, nearly 5 hours later, I have news. Just spoken to S, 4-hour op. Doc says she has done really well. Lost a lot of blood and will stay in recovery overnight. Is alert and pain-free. Praise God, tumour successfully removed. Shirley sounds weak and woozy, but so very relieved. I'm intensely glad for her and share the relief. "I'm still so mad, Monica." The pretty young nurse looks up from filling in a chart. "He borrows my car and then he takes another girl out in it. Can you believe it?" "No, you're kidding me, right?" replies the redhead next to her, busily rolling bandages. Shirley's head pops up. At this point, she's suddenly wide awake and deeply interested. "Oh, Mum," she tells me on the phone, "it was better than an episode of Friends." "What happened next?" I ask. "Do tell." "Well, it's a long story, and I felt for her, especially as apparently he dinged her car." "Mum, I feel really good. I'm properly awake with no pain at all. How cool is that?" "I'm getting quite bored," she tells me. "Every time something happens that seems remotely interesting, my head pops up, like the heroes in Meerkat Manor." We laugh together. Once she's back in the ward, the Australian doctor who assisted at the op drops by and drawls, "That was one seriously unhappy tumour." He's delighted that they got it all, and that there's no chance of a dropped foot. And Vicky and others in Shirley's medical team happily report, "We've got our Shirley back." Nick texts, "Through wires and tubes appearing from many places, this afternoon Shirley was radiant. I confess I was texting with a lump in the throat and grateful tears. Butch man tears, of course. God's hand is so clearly over Shirley. He hears us. He cares so much." The pic inserted here is of the new leg which, even this afternoon, has toes happily wiggling. Nick suggests that over the next 14 days, visits, flowers, chocolate, entertaining reading and news from the outside world will be most welcome. He just can't help himself and posts again, "Miss Shirley, bright and chatty, has no knowledge whatsoever as to what she's chatting about, but she's blissfully happy. Moving leg quite a bit more. Complete removal of tumour improves her ongoing prognosis. Yay!" As I sit in my corner, I notice that today all Shirley's gorgeous flowers on the windowsill beside her are bathed in bright sunlight. The day after the op, Shirley's consultant visits. Claire's very pleased. But what she says next fells Shirley and me with one deft blow. She walks out, unaware of what she's just done. But Shirley and I look at each other appalled. She doesn't believe she can heal me, Mum? Unintentionally, Claire has just revealed that her efforts have always been to win Shirley more time, never to heal her. That's par for the course with stages 3 and 4 cancer. But we didn't know that. Shirley starts to cry, and just cries, ever so quietly, for 2 days non-stop. Sometimes I watch a slow tear or two course down her cheek. Sometimes I can't bear to, and turn away, crying too. All I can do is to grieve and wait for our crying to stop. Once again, cancer contorts everything. After a slow, silent, heartbreaking struggle, Shirley chooses not to be overcome by Claire's chilling revelation. Instead, she chooses to hope and trust. "Mum," she says, once she can function again, "I need to be positive for everyone's sake. I marvel that under such circumstances she's concerned about others, that she feels responsible to keep our spirits up." Only 5 days after the op, she tells her friends, "Hey, everyone, brilliant progress. I just managed to stand up beside the bed using a heavy-duty Zimmer frame thingamy." A day later, she writes, "Second standing attempt today. Hoping the pain will ease soon. Apparently, I'm going to be taking a few steps later." "Yippee," Brian chirps from South Africa. "One small step for womankind," and all that. "Keep it up, sweetheart. You'll be running around any time now." Shirley's thrilled when Susie promises, "I will be visiting for an hour, or until Shirls can't bear any more positivity and giggles from me." Afterwards, she reports, "Shirls even sat on the side of the bed while the physio wiggled her leg about. I've had a couple of teary moments just because she's doing so well. She's in such a chipper mood, and in typical Shirley style, described last night's horrible pain as irritating. Think most of us would have described it as agony." Shirley does text, "Hi, can I ask for prayer? Specifically that the pain team gets my medication right. During the night I woke up in agony. Can you pray that they hit on a combination that works?" Facebook responds, "This had me in tears again, for the faith and grace that Shirley shows. It's very humbly, Katie." Tears here. "Wow, Thigh, maybe you'll be writing a book one day." Gaynor, "Shirley Worley, my beautiful brave girl, I wish I could be there now to give you a huge hug. You're an inspiration, and I miss your gentle presence." Rami. Nick stands beside Shirley's bed, looking at the leg. He lays his hands ever so gently on the deeply bound limb. "I just know God is going to heal her. I feel this wave of certainty wash over me like warm water." On the way home, he can't stop crying. "I have such a sense of awesome wonder and thanks, and yes, even surprise at how God works, which still leaves me speechless." I've been reading from my book, Mum, Please Help Me Die, the story of my daughter Shirley's battle with cancer. If you'd like to get a copy of the book, please contact me. You can do that at the following email address, thigh@mumpleasehelpmedie.co.za. I hope you'll be with me again next week. Goodbye.